Welcome to the Gynarchy Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Gynarchy Patel. Here we place women's health and feminism front and center where they belong, engaging in conversations that range from the fundamental to the fearless. With insights from expert guests, we aim to break through the barriers of the patriarchy and envision a new world led by the Gynarchy. So let's get started and dive right in. Welcome to the Gynarchy Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Gynarchy Patel. And today we are talking about feminist art, specifically cross-stitch, with my guest, Stephanie Rohr. Stephanie is a cross-stitch artist and craft book author based in Chicago. She uses this traditional fiber art medium to create feminist, snarky, and pop culture-centered art. Her first book, Feminist Cross-Stitch, was published in 2019, and her latest book, Self-Care Cross-Stitch, came out in 2022. She launched her cross-stitch design company, StephXStitch, in 2010. She creates finished hand-stitched art as well as do-it-yourself patterns and kits. Her work has appeared on Comedy Central's Key and Peele, HBO's We're Here, and in an ad for the Chicago Blackhawks. Stephanie and her work have been featured in the New York Times, London Sunday Times, Forbes, Time Out Chicago, the Chicago Reader, and Cross Stitch Magazine, among others. Welcome, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you. I found you just, scrolling on Instagram, and I loved what you were doing, and I bought a couple of pieces, so we'll be talking about that, but I'm thrilled to meet you. I'd love to hear how you came to be doing this, making this a business and, something that people traditionally just did as a hobby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it was kind of a long and winding road that brought me to doing this for a job. I learned how to cross stitch from my mom. I feel like that's a very common experience for many fiber art crafters. She was really into it. She made little baby samplers for me and my brother and sister with our name and all that stuff. And I was learning how to do it this would have been the early 90s. So it was all very pastel and teddy bears and cute. And I loved it right away. My mom got me a little kit that had a butterfly, and I was like, this is so much fun. So it was just a hobby of mine growing up, even through my teenage years. And then when I went away to college, I kind of didn't bring it with me. I actually went to school for musical theater, and then I did a master's in classical theater and moved to London to do that. And it was when I was there, kind of after grad school, and I was working in a pub and auditioning for shows, but I had a lot of free time and not a lot of money. And I was like, oh, I need to cross stitch again just to have something to do, because it always calmed me and it was just a fun thing to do, but still felt productive somehow. So it was then that I discovered subversive cross stitch, which now is kind of an umbrella term for a whole section of the cross stitch world, but it's actually a business name of Julie Jackson's cross stitch business. And she had a little pattern that just said fuck, and it had cute little flowers. And I was like, I'm going to stick, because that's hilarious. So that's what got me back into it. And then pretty soon a friend of mine saw that I was doing that and was like, oh my gosh, I've been wanting a custom embroidery thing for my parents' house. Would you be able to do that? I was like, yes, I would. So I just drew a pattern on graph paper with colored pencil and stitched from my own pattern. And yeah, when I moved back to Chicago, which is I'm originally from this area, I was still doing it as a hobby. And then it was roommates of mine actually that were like, why don't you have an Etsy store for these? And I was like, Etsy? Because I had no idea.
So great. How interesting. Yeah. So you were already a creative. So you went into theater. So then, but what made you leave theater and do this? Or are you still doing that?
Well, it was more the pandemic that kind of dissipated the theater work.
I see. Yes.
Okay. It was something I was doing at the same time. And once my Etsy shop started taking off, because it seemed like there was interest in these like snarky, funny cross stitches. So I was able to keep doing theater, but instead of bartending or waiting tables, I could have my own business, which was much more flexible because I'm a night owl and I can stay up late, get work done, which is nice. And it just gave me that freedom of like, oh, I don't have to ask a manager if I can go to this audition. I can just go because I'm my own boss now. So yeah, it was a thing that started. And then over time, it started being more successful than anything else I was doing. And it just kept growing.
Amazing. Congratulations. So it started around, you feel like you launched around the pandemic?
Oh, no. That's basically when I wasn't doing theater as much anymore. But I launched my Etsy shop in 2010. And then started doing more like art fairs and live events probably around like 2014. And that's also when I started patterns, because at first I was just selling the finished works because I didn't really know how to sell the patterns until I discovered cross-stitch software where I can make a pattern into a PDF, sell it online so that people can download it and then either print it off or just stitch off of their devices.
Amazing. I do want to ask you about your process, but, I guess I'll first start with why I wanted to talk about this. I'm an art lover, and I think historically just, women have just not been recognized for their work in general, but especially in the art world. In fact, women have been actively kept out of say traditional art like painting and sculpture, and the work that women do, or the creative work that women do, was often relegated to the home, like cross stitch and textile work like quilting or other things like that. Crochet is something I did growing up. And so I just love that, I guess I wanted to draw attention to you and your work. Not only does it have this feminist, appeal, of course, with your messages, but also you're like, I don't know, helping to show the value, revaluing women's work. And I also just love to just support women and their work and their businesses and their creations. So it was, it's a delight for me to have these in my home, and, they inspire me, of course, but then I also just want to draw attention to you. And I hope this just spreads,
But yeah, I definitely agree. And it's kind of like there's two levels of alienation with fiber arts, because as you said, even in what everyone considers to be fine art, like sculpture, painting, things you see in every museum, even in those art forms, women were kept out, or it was just much harder for them to gain recognition. And then even within the art world, there's kind of a second layer of that where fiber art was not always seen as art. And I call it that because it is art, but it was seen as craft, which was kind of a way of putting it into this lower category, which is kind of why. And a lot of the reasons is things that are considered craft were things that women did. Like in a certain time period in certain parts of the world, every female child would have to learn how to do embroidery because that was just part of homemaking, and that's what you are expected to do. And kind of whether you were into it or not, that's what you're going to do.
Right. It's just more unpaid labor. Right. And you've just reminded me of a huge one, of course, a huge textile art, fashion, which we so love, everyone does. And that is also a world which has, strangely, though it started with a, in the home, and women's work has become dominated by men, So
another example I use with that is like the culinary world, because at home, women are supposed to be in the kitchen. They're supposed to be cooking, but like every well-known awarded chef is a man, not anymore, but like especially I think for women to reach, the heights of success in that profession. So it's like if a man does it, it kind of automatically becomes more professional and more legitimate.
Right.
It makes sense.
So, and I do think it is changing in the fashion world. And I do think hopefully we are helping to lift up textile arts. So I guess maybe let's start by showing, I know that some people will just be listening, but if you'd like to see what we are showing off here, visit this episode on YouTube. So I'm going to start by showing off a couple of pieces that I bought from you, which I absolutely adore. So here's one. It says "Nasty Woman." Of course, that reminds me of, a time that Hillary Clinton and her being called that. So I love that. And this is like done in a hoop.
So the hoop is a more traditional, like old school way to display it as well.
Yes, I just love. The thing I love about your cross stitch work is it's so feminine, and like if you don't read it, it just looks like a traditional piece. And then you read it and you're like surprised. I just love surprising people when they come into my home. And then here's another one I purchased from Stephanie, which really speaks to me, and I keep in my living room. Ask me about my feminist agenda. That will get me never to shut up, So, and
yes, conversation. So,
what's that?
I said art should spark conversation. So that's perfect.
Yes, I love it. So, do you have pieces to share to kind of highlight like the types of things that you love to talk about, with your art?
Of course. So yeah, some of them are just fun and silly. This is a best-selling pattern of mine. It says no pants is.
Right. Love it. Love it. Sometimes I'm doing these Zooms pantless, I'll admit it.
I think especially during the pandemic, this became very relatable to people. And my inspirations are kind of all over the place. So this is one of my favorites. It's a Dorothy Parker quote. It says, "What fresh hell is this?"
I love it. Oh, I love it looks like stained glass, like pattern.
Yes, I was going for that, kind of like an Art Nouveau stained.
Yes, like is it, Art Deco? I don't know. Is that the style?
This is one I'm very proud of. It's in my feminist cross stitch book, and it's a cross stitch version of Rosie the Riveter. So this is one of my more realistic kind of cross stitches.
Looks like it must take much longer, huh?
Here, I'll zoom in on it. So yeah, there's even just, I think in her skin tone, there's about 25 different floss colors in there.
Oh, that's so cool. Love
and
it.
then
Thank
kind of
you.
A sillier one, because so much is also pop culture and memes and like internet trends. So I'm on Instagram a lot. I probably have my largest following there. So a couple years ago when the baby hippo Moo Dang was a huge deal, and I cross-stitched her.
I love it. Become ungovernable. What did you just say? Sorry.
It seemed like her vibe. She was this very chaotic little baby hippo.
I love it. Yes, I love when the little animals go viral. You should do a Punch, the monkey one.
Yeah, I know. People have been mentioning that, but I'm having trouble because Punch is kind of sad. I feel bad for him.
Yes.
So
what's that?
I heard he has a friend now, so maybe he's okay.
Yes. He had someone like a mother type figure I saw, and also like maybe a girlfriend. Very cute. So is that your inspiration, like pop culture things, or do you have particular inspirations?
It's like I said, it's kind of all over the place. I mean, doing the books was helpful because it forced me to focus on certain themes for a while. But when I'm left to my own devices, it can truly be anything from like a Shakespearean quote to like a reality TV meme to literary quote. So it's just kind of whatever sparks my interest at the moment, or what people.
And do you find your inspiration from social media or just everywhere? And how do you organize this?
I don't. I mean, no. I kind of just let my interest guide
you.
And I also try to think of where people would want to display them. And maybe, so I have some that are more for the office that don't have curse words, but still say funny things like per my last email.
Funny. Yes.
That, or, often for some reason people put cross stitch in the bathroom. So I have one that says poke in my bathroom just because it's funny. So
wait, could you repeat that? What did you say?
Oh, yeah, I have one that says, please don't do coke in my bathroom.
Oh, okay. That's a good one. Okay. Yeah, I probably good for like a house party, play like a frat house or a sorority house, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's that, or for a place where like that definitely wouldn't be a problem, like your most straight-laced friend's home. I like the irony.
Love that. So, do you know anything about, so it sounds like your inspiration was of course in the home, your mom. Did your mom, like when you learned cross stitch from your mom, I'm sure it wasn't anything unusual. It was more traditional. What kind of work did you do then?
Then it was very much more traditional. I feel like there was also less options at the time because the internet has really kind of exploded the range of designs that people have access to in cross stitch because, like I said, you can download a PDF pattern from anywhere in the world instead of back in the day in the 80s and 90s, you had to subscribe to a cross stitch magazine, which would have some, but of course you didn't really get to choose them. They're just the ones that come every month. Or you would go to like Michael's or Joanne Fabrics and they would have kits there. So a lot of the ones my mom did, she did like the baby room samplers. I remember doing like quilt block designs, but with cross stitch, or just kind of like more pastoral, like outdoor scenes of trees and a farmhouse and just very cute stuff like that.
And then you said you were inspired by someone who cross-stitched the word fuck, right? A friend of yours, and you basically copied it, right?
Well, yeah. Well, we were not.
Is that a design that she shared? Like, how does that work? Could you tell us about the process?
We actually became friends over the years, but I didn't know her at the time. So her name is Julie Jackson, and her company is called Subversive Cross Stitch. So she had an online shop where you could buy the pattern. So I downloaded the pattern from that and stitched from that.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. And you mentioned that now it's become like, what was the traditional way of making these designs? And then now you said there's like a computerized way, right?
Yeah. So cross stitch is kind of a grid form. I can actually open my book.
So you do it. You draw it out on paper if you were doing it manually. Okay.
So like if I'll zoom in on this. Like this is what a pattern would look like.
Okay.
It's a grid and each little color has its own symbol. And there's a couple different kinds of cross stitch. There's stamped cross stitch, which is more the old school thing where the colors are stamped onto the fabric and you buy it as a kit.
Oh, okay.
The kind that I do is called counted cross stitch because you are stitching on gridded fabric and you're counting the little squares and making the little X's based on a pattern that you're looking at.
Okay. And I guess this grid, if you're doing it I guess the computer has of course made it like easier because you can just do it, design it there. Okay, yeah, very interesting.
Drawn out by hand. So I have some older patterns as well, and it's on a grid, and you'd be like, this dot is the red thread, and this square is the black thread, and like, so people really had to painstakingly draw out the entire design, and would refer to that to stitch. So now I use a program called MacStitch, which I've used since about 2012. Yeah, and it's not super advanced or anything. And it's not AI. I'm drawing my own patterns, but it's kind of like a Microsoft Paint almost, except
I see.
The colors that are loaded in are the thread colors of the major brands of thread, so you can know exactly what it's going to look like, and you kind of draw with your mouse on the little grid.
So this is the kind of things that you're covering, of course, in your book, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I love that, just anyone can pick it up. You don't need to have any kind of special training. You can pick up your book and learn, right?
Yeah, they're designed to be beginner friendly. Another thing I really love with cross stitch is that there's such a wide range of time commitment, of money commitment, of complexity. So you can really make the most simple little design that like I was able to do as a 9-year-old, and I did it. And then there are these people who create these gigantic detailed pieces, and they add beading and they do add fractional stitches, and it looks like a work of art. I mean, it's all work of art to me, but I also like it because, as you mentioned, anyone can pick it up, and it's a very low barrier of entry because the supplies are not expensive. Like it's cotton fabric, it's a needle and thread and scissors. So yeah, and if you have the time to put into it, that's where the real kind of commitment is.
Right. I mean, it is an art form that is taught, kind of handed down, right? And I mean, that's another thing that's appealing about it. Like, you don't need, there isn't like barriers to entry, like kind of like you don't need to have some kind of authority to do it. Anyone can do it. And it's like something shared among women. I mean, I guess that's another thing that, do you know anything? I'd love to hear if you know anything about the history of cross stitch, because I guess I've heard that it was just historically maybe used in a subversive way as well to communicate, among women.
Yeah. I don't know a ton of details about the history. I know that it is documented as early as the Middle Ages in Europe. It appears in many different cultures, in Asian cultures, in the Middle East. And then I think almost every culture in the world has some form of embroidery, if not specifically cross stitch. But I know cross stitch was in those places. And I think it started out less as a like hang it on the wall art and more of you learn how to make the alphabet and you learn how to make little decorative flowers and little animals so that you can decorate clothing or tea towels or just things around the house and like personalize.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it started out that way. I don't know as much about stitching messages into the actual pieces, but I know that things like sewing circles and like times where women would meet up to all work on this together, it wasn't really about the stitching. It was kind of about sharing information and their own space away from men or whatever else.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't want to like misquote it, but I know there is a famous story of a British POW during World War II that stitched Morse code around the borders of they let him stitch, I guess, in a Nazi POW camp, and he stitched Morse code of "fuck Hitler" all around.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I'm going to have to look that up. I love that. Yeah, exactly. I've heard things like that, because obviously women communicating with each other often was not really encouraged. And yeah, I can see that these circles, these cross stitch circles or, crafting circles could be a time when women could maybe do that, and to share their thoughts about things that are challenging in their lives. So, and
there were women putting subversive messages at the time. And I think it was more maybe a factor of this is the art form I'm allowed to participate in. So if I have something to say, I guess it's going to be in here.
Okay. That's a good point. So how do you view yourself, among like in the, like, do you feel like you're part of a feminist art movement? Do you view yourself as, making a difference with your art?
I hope so. I mean, that's definitely a goal of mine. And, that's the theme of my first book. And, I know we are talking about this in the context of women in art, but I do believe that cross stitch is for women, men, any gender expression of person. And part of patriarchy that hurts men is the idea of like, oh, you can't do this hobby because it's feminine. So my dream is really cross stitch for everyone, because I think feminism also includes everyone, because I think patriarchy harms everyone in the end. So if I can spread the word of cross stitch and the word of feminism both at the same time, that's great. And I've had people come up to me and tell me how much it means to them to be able to stitch this. Or at art fairs, especially older women coming up to me, I'm always a little bit scared because, like, I have lots of profanity on the walls. Some of them are a little sexually suggestive. I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? You never know. But half the time it's this old lady saying, like, this is wonderful. I wish I could. Oh, this is so great. It's just,
you must have inspired some women to start making some radical art in their lives.
Yes. And it's so cathartic. The process itself, a lot of people find it to be meditative and relaxing. I know I don't have anxiety. I'm more of a depression person, but the repetitive movement helping calm down anxiety. Yeah. It's just.
How long do you spend on, like, on your pieces on average? I know it depends on the project, but I'm just curious, like, what is your experience of doing it? Do you find it relaxing or meditative, or, how does it personally help you?
Well, it definitely does, because, I mean, when I started it out as a hobby, that's what I really loved about it, was being able to focus on it and have that meditative, repetitive thing going on. It has made more sense to me in recent years because I was late diagnosed with ADHD, which made a lot of things make sense, including how as a kid, I could cross stitch for like 4 hours straight because it would be like a hyper focus of mine, really calm me down and like make me actually focus on something. So I think the same thing happens now. There is a huge range of time between like the size of the piece, but I would say a small piece can go from an idea in my head, and I'll probably design it in a few hours in one day, and then I'll, pick out the colors, start stitching. My very smallest pieces would take me still about an hour and a half of stitching. Something like Rosie, I didn't even keep track, but it was like weeks of my life.
Wow.
So it's, and that adds to some difficulties with like pricing, because part of this is, that whole thing of it not being valued as an art form, but people expect it to be cheap because they've seen it like at a thrift store.
Right.
When I tell them how much it is, it's like, what? It's like, of the hours I put into it and, the expertise.
Yes.
So, it.
I mean, that is a challenge for women, is, valuing themselves, correctly, because we have been taught to undervalue ourselves. So this is interesting to me, actually, like, were you underpricing your things at first, and how have you, approached this to finally, price them accurately for the time and effort spent?
Yeah, I mean, it was just kind of a learn as I go type thing and a necessity type thing, because in the beginning I was definitely undervaluing it. And I think that can be true of any artist or anyone starting their own business, because you have this imposter syndrome and you have this fear of like, no one's really going to pay me for this, right? Like,
right.
So I better price it low. And it's kind of that backwards idea of, in the beginning, instead of pricing it as what is my labor and creativity worth? What do I need to make to live? Like where I live and how I live, which is not anything extravagant. It's a 1-bedroom in Chicago that I rent. I was looking at it from the consumer's perspective rather than from myself as an artist and a business.
Yes.
So over the years, I have changed it a lot. And one thing I do a lot, especially with other female artists, is if I'm at an art show next to someone who has beautiful work, but they're a little younger than me, they're not quite pricing it up, I will like very kindly yell at them about, this should cost twice as much.
And honestly, I love this. I do the same because I've learned the hard way. One of my episodes I shared, like I asked for a certain salary and there was no negotiate and they instantly gave it to me. And it made me realize, like, wait a minute, I probably could have asked for more. So I think it's very important for women to understand that your value is what you place on yourself, right? And there's millions of people in the world and there will be a market. It's just so you don't have to lower, yourself, your value and your creations in order to appeal to a lot of people. There's always going to be a lot of people. And yeah. So yeah, I love and like you said, like I like how you reverse figured out what you needed to make and what your time and labor mean to you. So I think that's a great message. So I'm actually, oh, sorry, finish your thought.
Another thing that helped me kind of square that was the fact that I offer so many options to people, because I understand that not everyone can afford like an $150 piece of art. But then I have another option where I'm like, hey, if you can't afford that, I sell a kit for $30 that comes with all the supplies and instructions and the pattern, and you can make it yourself. Or I sell the pattern PDF for $5 that you can mine and you can materials and do it yourself. So that helped alleviate some like guilt or worry about pricing the art accordingly. Yes. Like I'm giving people many different options. Like, are you crafty? Are you not? Do you have lots of money? Do you have lots of time? Like which one is make it work for you?
I love that. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, you've expanded pretty much it's accessible to anybody who's interested. And that's wonderful. I guess the reason I said what I was saying is because what you were saying was reminding me of how, like, sometimes paintings sell for ungodly amounts of money. And why? So people put a value on things, which is completely determined by them and the artist, and just, their interests. So you can price yourself wherever in terms of art. Your pieces are one of a kind, they're handmade, so there's a rarity to them, versus a machine made cross stitch item, which you can also buy.
And to me, it's like the difference between fast fashion and couture, like, because couture fashion is usually has hand details and stuff like that, as opposed to something made in a factory. Like it's the same kind of thing. And cross stitch is one of the only embroidery techniques that you cannot really do with a machine. Machine embroidery is a thing. And I guess you could kind of fudge it. Like I've seen some garments that have like cross stitch details, but it's not quite the same. So I really enjoyed that it's like strictly a by hand art form.
Yes, you can. And you can tell, right? Yes, if something is a handmade piece, right? So actually, before we go forward, I actually wanted to hear like how you mentioned some of your work being featured on TV, and in ads. And I just kind of want to hear how I guess we didn't go from like you making it a business, when it started blowing up and then getting the attention, broader attention. I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. Yeah. So none of it's that weird or exciting. It's just I had an Etsy shop and I was starting to get some attention on social media, especially with my more meme-like funny pieces. One of my most popular is that like Bayou Tapestry meme where it says, "Behold the field in which I grow my fucks, lay thine eyes upon it and see that it is barren." And I made a cross-stitch version of that, which made it to the front page of Reddit, just because loving Reddit people thought it was hilarious.
Yes.
And so that got me a ton of followers just naturally, which was very nice. And I think it was right after that happened that just on Etsy, like a set decorator, like prop kind of person from Key and Peele asked if I would be okay with one of my pieces like being in the background of a sketch if they purchased it from my shop. And I was like, of course. So I think it's a little rooster and it says cock. And it was in the background of the sketch where the two of them were playing a gay couple who were excited about gay marriage because they were going to get on each other's health insurance.
Nice.
And their house all had that kind of theme of decor in it. And
Right.
the HBO one, I didn't even realize until the show had happened and someone sent me a screenshot and was like, hey, isn't this your pattern? And it was a close-up of the piece. I actually have the piece here. So We're Here was a show where 3 drag queens would go into kind of a rural, more conservative community and kind of talk with community members, and they would put on a drag show kind of with the LGBTQ community in that town. And one of the people featured on the show had this in their home.
Love it. Yeah.
Which just says safe space with a little rainbow design. And I even connected with that person after the show aired and asked if they wanted a copy of my book. And they were like, oh my God, yes, please. So that was kind of a happy accident. And then the Blackhawks ad, they reached out to me directly. And this was a hard one for me personally, because I'm not a huge hockey fan. Like, it's fine. But they wanted me to make a cross stitch for an ad where an old lady was stitching something. And it says, Detroit sucks.
What sucks? Sorry. Detroit. Oh.
Because the Blackhawks' big rival is the Detroit Red Wings. And I agreed to do it, but I had to warn my dad about it because he is from Detroit and he's a huge Red Wings fan. And I was like,
so funny.
Make this. He was like, that's okay.
What is have you ever had weird requests or requests you had to turn down?
I luckily have never had a request I had to turn down. I think it's because people are most often finding me through my social media or my Etsy and they see what is there. So like no one's going to reach out to me and be like, will you make a pro-Trump design for me? So I think that kind of weeds people out. I've definitely had requests where I didn't understand it because it was an inside joke.
Oh, okay.
It sounded like nonsense to me, but it was like, oh, like a guy who was the best man at a wedding. And it's like, I want to get this gift for the groom. And it was some weird quote that made no sense. But I kind of like that because I'm working on this thing and I'm like, I don't know what this joke about a llama is, but someone's going to love it.
Yes. That's cool. That's cool. What is is there something that is just memorable to you that's just happened as a result of this? Like the coolest thing and,
Yeah.
something exciting.
Well, some of the coolest things that have happened started with some of the worst things that have happened. It's kind of in the same context as the nasty woman piece that you have. I like to take something negative and turn it into something positive. So that was obviously meant as an insult, and I'm not the first one to kind of rebrand that. I feel like the whole women's movement at the time was like, yeah, we are nasty women. Like, what are you going to do about it? So one thing that happened was someone purchased my book on Amazon. And when they got it, someone had taken a Sharpie and written like MAGA Trump 2020 in it, in the title.
Okay. They returned it? Wait.
They ordered a new book from Amazon.
Oh, okay. And then they wrote that in there.
An Amazon employee wrote that in there before they sent it to the person. So the person received a brand new book in the mail that had pro-Trump graffiti.
Oh my goodness. Wow, that is weird. What ended up happening?
Well, that's when I got written about in Forbes because I contacted the woman and I posted about it on social media because she was like, is this like a joke? Is this like an ironic thing? And I was like, no, that should not exist. Involved some fun calls with like Amazon corporate and trying to figure out what had happened. And yeah, the whole thing made me feel bad because I'm like, Amazon workers do not have awesome jobs anyway. And whoever wrote that probably is educated a lot about, the agenda of the MAGA movement. It really won't help them if that's the position they're in. But, they saw this feminist cross-stitch book and were angry enough to like write that to try to ruin someone's day who ordered it. And just because of the attention it got on social media, someone from Forbes interviewed me and the woman who purchased the book. I of course, knew signed copy and everything was fine. But yeah, the biggest thing that probably happened was, which led to the New York Times coverage, which was awesome. But it began as my book was going to be stocked in Michael's for Women's History Month.
Cool. I love that.
Yeah, so did I. But then I saw someone tag me again in a Reddit post with an image of my book with a big sticker on the front that said "put in compactor." And the Reddit post was, my mom works at Michael's and they decided to throw out all of these books because of language, but she saved me one from the dumpster.
Oh my God. Did anything ever happen there? Like, what? It's so strange.
Yes. So I don't know how it even got there, if language is a problem for Michael's, but yeah, they had it on this special like Women's History Month display. And I don't know why. I don't know if a customer complained or if someone higher up did not like the message of the book or the language in the book. They decided to take it all off the shelves and stop selling it.
Oh, do you mind me? Well, it was covered in the New York Times article. So do you mind sharing where this was, which part of the country?
I don't know from where it originated, but it was nationwide. Michael's all banned it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my God, that's huge. I mean, that sounds like a violation of free speech, but I guess because it's a private company, did it go anywhere legally?
Not legally. I was very lucky because with book selling for big retailers like that, it's not like a bookshop where if your book doesn't sell, it kind of goes back to the publisher and you don't get paid. But in this case, they had bulk ordered a large number of books and I sold those books, that first order they did. I mean,
you cut out there, but you said, did you get paid for those books?
I got paid for their initial order of books. I feel like over time, it would have been better to have my books continually for sale in Michael's stores. Yes. But that is not what happened. So yeah, it's still a mystery of what exactly caused it. They said it was because of profanity. There are 5 swear words in the book out of 40 patterns. And they're all used, in my opinion, in a positive way. Like, yes, the word fuck is in there, but it's like, fuck your internalized misogyny. So I see it as empowering messages,
That's really unfortunate. I mean, craft store like that is just the perfect place for your book to be placed. So now it's sold in regular bookstores and maybe other craft stores. And you can find it online, of course, right?
Oh, yeah. So it turned out okay because I got some great exposure from that interview. I still don't really believe what they told me about profanity because I have personally seen sweary coloring books and stuff like that at Michael's. So it's still kind of a mystery of what exactly happened. But I think the story took off so much because it was just the perfect irony of we're going to feature this female crafter and her feminist book for Women's History Month. Oh, but we don't like the way you're saying it. So it's gone and we're throwing them out.
It was very ironic. I know. And there's so many other things you can be upset about, but you're making fun, cheeky art, it's beautiful. It's also inspirational. So that's crazy to me. But so have you gotten I don't see your platform as being one that should garner hate, but have you gotten hate personally on your Instagram page?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I just delete. Instagram has some nice tools of certain words you can block. So messages with those words will not come through. So I have used that before. But it's not even on my super feminist stuff. Sometimes it's on my more political things. They're more focused on Minneapolis now, but ICE was in Chicago a lot recently. And I made a cute little cross stitch with a melting ice cube that says "fuck ice," and posted that online. I definitely got some mean.
Okay. Yeah. It just you just reminded me, like, I've seen some of your work on like when I was buying these, I had a hard time deciding because I just loved it all. It's just so cute and funny and inspiring. And I guess I want to ask what you're working on next. Like, are you working on another book? What are you looking forward to?
I don't have another book deal, but I have ideas and things that I'm starting to talk to people about. Because it's still in the planning stages, I can't really say what it is yet, but it is in the vein as feminist cross stitch. So it's very like resistance based, empowering messages.
I'm excited to hear about that. Sorry, go ahead, complete your thought.
Oh, yeah. So looking forward to that. And just a lot of what I do is local art fairs around the Midwest. So I'm kind of gearing up for that. Yeah. And just trying to put out more patterns and kits online for crafters. Yeah. Looking for my next pop culture silly inspirations.
How often are you at craft fairs? Is this the season for you, or is it all year long? And how often do you go?
Yeah, so this is kind of the end of my break season, kind of January through March. So I'm doing a International Women's Day themed market next weekend. And then
where is that? Where is that?
That's in Chicago. So if you're in Chicago, it is Artifact Events in Ravenswood. That's the 28th and 29th of March. But yeah.
This episode is actually coming out later, but is there a place where you have a schedule? I don't know if people come to see you, like, yeah.
So on my website, StephXStitch.com, and on my social media, which is all at StephXStitch, you can find all my upcoming live events. I sometimes do in-person beginner cross-stitch classes, events, or art fairs where I sell my work. So they will all be listed on there.
Hey, amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I hope to meet you in person someday. So, Stephanie, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to share about your work or cross stitch in general?
Not really. I think just generally, if it's something that you've been wanting to try, you should definitely try it. I've rarely met anyone who totally hates it, but most people really get addicted to it, and it becomes a nice like break from screens, a nice time to just like, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, podcasts, turn on some silly brainless TV that you don't really have to look at and just go for it. So yeah, there's any kind of design you can imagine exists online. Feminist designs, political designs, quotes from your favorite silly TV show, or really detailed, beautiful, pieces of artwork that will take you 3 years to finish. But for some people, that's what they want. So yeah, don't be afraid to start a new craft, basically, at any age, no matter who you are, where you are. It's great.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing about your art and, spending this time with me today.
Thanks for having me on. This was great.
Here's my closing thought for today. In the patriarchy, women's art, such as cross-stitch, is often undervalued, considered more of a craft than an art form, is tied to unpaid domestic labor, and restricted in terms of expression and themes. But in the Gynarchy, we seek to elevate women and their creative work, including art forms such as this, and encourage women to use it for self-expression as a medium for critique and protest, and of course, to be financially rewarded for their valuable work. So down with the patriarchy, up with the Gynarchy. Thank you so much for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a review on one of the podcast platforms. Take care. Did you enjoy this episode of the Gynarchy Podcast? Know someone else who might enjoy this conversation? Make sure to subscribe and share the show with your friends and family. Find us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and just about anywhere you find podcasts. On social media, we can be found on Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok at The Gynarchy. Thank you so much for listening.